Thank you, Mr. Duvall. Now, the next question from the audience is, if you were governor of Arizona, would you give driver's license and in-state tuition to DREAM Act students? Let's start with Mrs. Jones.
We're skipping our, okay, all right.
I'm sorry?
Just wanted to make sure we weren't being held to the numbers we drew. Don't take anybody's turn. We've abandoned the number drawing.
Everybody will answer the
so
question.
licenses and in-state tuition for Dreamers. The governor has already signed an order that gives the specific prohibition for driver's licenses and some other benefits for DREAM Act kids. And to the extent that the state is saving money on state expenses that are being given to people who are citizens of other countries, I'm in favor of that. Nevertheless, I do think any way we can put people to work that saves resources and contributes resources back into the economy, we have to pursue those avenues. This makes a lot of sense. And I also think that the Board of Regents now is probably moving in the direction of in-state tuition for DREAM Act kids, and that's obviously that's going to be something that they decide. The Constitution is pretty specific on what we do with tuition in our state universities, and we probably are out of balance with that at the moment. But as governor, I think the thing to do is to look at how do you use the resources of the state? What are the expenses that you have to meet? What are the ways to increase the revenue? And then look at that in terms of the people who are being put into the market who have the potential to earn and to contribute back to the state's economy. And to the extent that you can do that, you have to go to the things that are accretive to the state.
Mr. Riggs.
I very strongly support Governor Brewer's ban on driver's licenses for dreamers, or whatever term we're going to use. The fact of the matter is, for illegal immigrants or individuals who've illegally entered our country. Very strongly support her ban. And the only special dispensation I'm willing to make for a dreamer, and this is the veteran in me speaking, is if they're willing to step forward, volunteer to serve in our all-volunteer military, and perform honorable service and be honorably discharged. I think that is the only exception to the laws that are firmly in place. And again, I'm reminded of the constitutional oath that I took when I enlisted in the United States Army. I'm reminded of the constitutional oath I took when I was sworn into the United States Congress. That oath is very simple, ladies and gentlemen. It says you will protect and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic. You have to uphold the rule of law. It's outrageous. It's outrageous that the Attorney General of the United States, the Chief Law Enforcement Officer of the United States, suggest that the illegal immigrants who have recently, as part of the border surge, come into our country should immediately start hearings to avoid deportation procedures. We have to restore the rule of law in our country. That's the first step, by the way, to restoring a good bilateral partnership with Mexico and Central American countries, which, by the way, last year received over $400 million in federal taxpayer foreign aid.
Mr. Smith.
I have long advocated for fixing the system. Our system is broken. It's broken from top to bottom. And the status quo simply is not acceptable because Arizona hurts. We get damaged more than anyone else. The fact that we're talking about these, to me, are sideshows. And it's like going to a restaurant, and you know when you go to a restaurant, they bring out the bread, and that sort of keep you happy till the main course comes. Well, in this situation, things like driver's license are the bread. They keep bringing us the bread. And I think we're being fed bread, nothing more, and the main course is never coming. I'm for the main course. If we fix the system, we don't get these questions because we'll have a system where this is the rule of law. We'll have a system that functions. We'll have a system where these issues will be decided. And so I have long stated I support maintaining the status quo because I think it's a distraction from the main course. And the main course is to fix a system that's broken, a system that has a hard time maintaining the rule of law, and a system that if we can bring it and bring order at the border, if we can remove the chaos of immigration, all these issues will bring people into the system. We will allow the opportunities that everyone who lives within the bounds of the rule of law should have, and we don't have that right now, and I'm not willing to be sidetracked or distracted simply for things that will give us a short-term buzz or a short-term satisfaction and give up the main course.
Mr. Thomas?
Well, I oppose both measures. I don't think that we need to be giving driver's licenses to illegal immigrants, and we certainly don't need to be subsidizing illegal immigration by giving in-state tuition breaks. That is just madness. We are effectively and implicitly allowing the rule of law to be undermined when we do that. And it's costing us money to boot. So there's a double insult and a double threat to our future and way of life. Here's the bottom line. We're either serious about solving this problem or we're just going to continue to see our economy and our way of life threatened. And you cannot continue to incentivize illegal immigration. And these are basically forms of amnesty. We had a mass amnesty 30 years ago. And not only did it not work, we're now being asked to give another generation an amnesty. And I guarantee you if we do it now, we will be asked to do it 20, 30 years from now. And at some point, our nation loses its integrity. And at some point, just as a practical economic matter, we will go broke. It is a hard truth, but it is a truth. We cannot feed and clothe the world. There are limits to our generosity, and the laws set by our elected representatives or by the people determine the limits of our generosity. And at that limit, I say we must enforce the law. No incentives, no excuses. The law is the law.
Mr. Bennett?
I will support driver's licenses and in-state tuition for anyone who is present in our state and country legally. And if you look at the President's program, it clearly states in the materials online and I'm sure in printed form that this is part of a deferred deportation program, which I think is just being cruel to people. Instead of that, we should be addressing the problem straightforward, coming up with a mechanism, as I mentioned earlier, of allowing people to get square with the law. That's not amnesty, and it's not cut in front of the line, but it is get square with the law, pay fines and penalties or whatever is deemed by the court system to be appropriate. And then once you are present legally in the country, you can get driver's licenses, you can get in-state tuition if you've lived here the requisite amount of time, and enjoy all of the responsibilities and the rights of being in this country legally. But until we address the presence legal in the country, I don't think you can grant those privileges, but I would support in-state tuition and driver's license for anyone that's here legally.
Mr. Ducey?
I'm supportive of Governor Brewer's executive order that reiterated that legal status was necessary for any public benefit. I believe that it's important, before we address who is already here, we address how they are getting here. I think we hurt ourselves if we don't keep the focus on what we deal with as a border state every day, and I think what's happened most recently in the last several weeks, which is affecting Arizona, even amplifies that today. We are a nation of immigrants, but we are also a nation of laws.
Mr. Duval?
It would appear that many of my colleagues here want to make it as hard for these dream kids to succeed as possible in our economy. I take a different view. Yes, I support the repeal of Governor Brewer's prohibition of driver's licenses, and yes, I will immediately, upon election as governor, call a special meeting of the Board of Regents, a board on which I used to serve, to pursue an in-state tuition level. Why? Because these are children who were brought by parents across into our country and are proving all of the attributes that we want for Americans. They are motivated, they are smart, they have served our country in military, they are getting good grades. I have volunteers in my campaign, Dream Kids, who take 3 and 4 buses to work, have an extra 2.5 hours to get to and from work. I have Dream Kids that are working on our team that have served in the military, getting good grades in the university, and can't afford to sustain because of the cost of higher education. These are gifted people that are going to be part of our future. And if you understand and accept that the most important thing we need to do is embrace smart, motivated, entrepreneurial talent, We need to assure that this young talent that's among us has every opportunity to contribute to the growth of our economy and to fully manifest their God-given talents as a part of our broader community.
Mr. Hess.
Well, I think it's kind of ridiculous to give people licenses who are here illegally. So one of the few things that I can say Brewer has done right is sign her executive order requiring people simply to be legal so that we know who they are. Otherwise, you're creating a special class of people, which is not only unconstitutional, it's unethical and immoral. To say, anecdotally, I've got these people who deserve, in my opinion, your money. I think that's ridiculous. We've got to be across the board, and as a libertarian, I'm always going to see everybody equal. That's what it is, not distinguishing one group for another. So the real problem goes beyond and back to the immigration situation, where we can allow people to be here legally without becoming a citizen or without tying down the public generosity on the public dole. I think it's important that if somebody wants to come to America to enjoy all the benefits that we all have had, that they should work for it, just like we did and just like every generation before us. But to give them a special opportunity, it seems very hypocritical, but at the same time, it's also just a scam to get votes. I mean, it's got to be.